I'm quitting my job. You'll support me and my kids while I find myself, my fiancée texted. I replied, not my problem, and accepted a job overseas starting Monday. 10 minutes later, her mom wrote, banned from our family until you sign her $70,000 loan. That night, I reviewed my accounts and removed shared payments in my name. 33 missed calls. I want you to know I am a reasonable person. I need you to believe that before I tell you about the brass band. My name is Emmerich. I'm 33. I'm a social worker, which means I have spent 9 years professionally managing other people's disasters, while my own quietly stacked up behind me like unpaid invoices. I live in a 4th-floor apartment in a building with thin walls and excellent acoustics, which becomes relevant later. My neighbor across the hall is a 67-year-old man named Vojtek, a former municipal events coordinator who retired 6 years ago and has, in my estimation, spent every single day since then leveraging 30 years of connections for purposes I cannot fully predict or explain. He knows the woman who schedules city park permits. He knows 3 different brass band conductors by first name. He once got a parking fine erased by making a single phone call, during which he spoke in a language I did not recognize, and the fine simply ceased to exist. I used to think Vojtek was a minor character in my life. I was wrong about that. I need you to know I am a reasonable person before I tell you what happened on the Saturday afternoon when Nadine held what she called a family meeting to discuss my abandonment of our household. And 14 men in formal uniforms walked into that cafe with instruments. It was a Tuesday when it started. I had just come home, poured myself a glass of water, checked my phone, and found one text from my fiancée Nadine. I've been thinking a lot, and I've decided I'm quitting my job next week. I need to find myself. You'll support me and the kids while I do that, right? We're a team. I set the glass down, I picked it back up, I drank the entire thing. And then I typed, not my problem. Yes, I know. Keep reading. Nadine and I had been together for 2.5 years and engaged for 7 months. She has 2 kids, Marcus, 9, and Lila, 7. Genuinely good children who deserved better than the financial strategy their mother had quietly assembled around my existence. I was not their father. I had never been asked to be. Nadine had told me explicitly and on multiple occasions that she was fully independent and not looking for someone to carry her. These are direct quotes. I have the texts. I am a social worker. Documentation is the only thing standing between me and chaos on any given Tuesday. We moved in together 8 months ago. We agreed on a 50-50 split for all shared expenses. Her idea. She called it modern and equal. I called it fair and shook on it. It was modern and equal for 6 weeks. Then her car. Then her phone. Then a mental health weekend she scheduled with a spa package I found the receipt for. Then the groceries, consistently, because she was between paychecks. Then the rent, once, because she had miscalculated, a word that does not mean what she used it to mean. None of it returned. When I brought it up, she said I was keeping score, and that wasn't how love worked. I kept a spreadsheet, because love is a thing, and documentation is also a thing, and both can exist simultaneously. The total came to $4,340 over 8 months. In March, I applied for a position overseas, international social work, coordinating community support systems, the career opportunity I'd been building toward for 6 years. I told Nadine. She said that was sweet and asked if I'd booked the kids' dentist appointments, which I had not because they were not my children. I was offered the position in April. I told Nadine I was seriously considering accepting. She laughed, in the specific way that means I find your delusion charming but also irritating. You can't go overseas, she said. We're a family. We're engaged, I said. Which is different. She listed reasons I couldn't leave. The bills, the kids' routine, the car noise, the fact that she had been thinking about her career path. That last phrase I filed incorrectly in my mental database, under temporary uncertainty, instead of warning active planning in progress. I accepted the job. I told her at dinner it did not go well. She said, fine, Then I'll quit and you can support me and the kids until I figure something out, because I can't do this alone. I explained this was not a plan. The next day, she sent the text. I replied. Carolyn texted 10 minutes later. You are banned from this family until you sign Nadine's $70,000 loan. Non-negotiable. Friday, deadline. I drove home and removed every shared payment from my accounts. By midnight, 33 missed calls. Nadine, Carolyn, Nadine's sister, a woman I had met twice and who apparently had financial opinions, and an unknown number that turned out to be Nadine's coworker, apparently now recruited into the effort. I was standing in my kitchen at 12:15 a.m., staring at my phone, when I heard a knock. Vojtek. He was in his bathrobe, holding a cup of tea, leaning against my doorframe, with the expression of a man who had heard every call through the wall and had already made several decisions. Your phone, he said, has been making noise for 4 hours. I'm aware, I said. He looked at me for a moment. Then, come have tea. You can tell me. So I did. I sat in Vojtek's kitchen, which smells permanently of coffee and something I think is a cured meat from a country I cannot identify. And I told him everything. The spreadsheet, the loan demand, the job, the missed calls, all of it. Vojtek listened without interrupting, which is rarer than it should be. When I finished, he nodded slowly. And what is your plan? I'm leaving Monday, I said. I just need this week to not be a disaster. He stirred his tea. I know people, he said. I know you know people, I said. I don't know what that means in this context. It means, he said, that when you are ready, you tell me. I went to bed. I did not ask what kind of people or how or why. I was too tired. This was, in retrospect, the correct approach. Nadine did not accept that Monday's silence was an answer. She posted on Facebook, not vague, not coded, but specific. My name, the words chosen a foreign country over his family. No mention of the $4,000. No mention of the loan. No mention that I was not anyone's father. My supervisor saw it. HR called me on Monday morning. I explained the situation in the same tone I use professionally, even documented, without editorializing. I was excused with an apology. I returned to my desk and sat down and looked at the wall for a while. On Thursday, I received a message from Nadine's Aunt Bettina, a woman who had given me a scented candle at Christmas and called me steady. Bettina informed me that Nadine had organized a family meeting for Saturday afternoon at a cafe called Le Papillon, in a visible and trafficked part of the city center. Purpose: to address the situation with Emmerich in front of assembled family, mutual friends, and at least 2 people from Nadine's book club. It was structured, Bettina said carefully, like an intervention. About me. Are you telling me this to warn me? I asked. I'm telling you, she said, because I think it's a bad idea and I wanted someone to know. I sat with this for 40 seconds. Then I walked across the hall and knocked on Vojtek's door. He opened it. He looked at my face. He opened the door wider and stepped aside to let me in. There's a cafe, I said. Saturday, 2 p.m., they're doing a formal intervention about my life choices. Vojtek picked up his phone from the counter. He opened a contact. He looked at me. You said you wanted this week to not be a disaster. I've reconsidered, I said. He smiled, very slowly. Carol owes me something from 2019. Who is Carol? The conductor, said Vojtek. Of what? The Municipal Festive Brass Ensemble, he said, in the tone of someone reading a perfectly obvious answer. I looked at him for a long time. Vojtek, I said, what exactly are you suggesting? He was already dialing. Step 1. The foundation, responsible and unremarkable. Friday morning. Lawyer first. A precise woman named Henrietta who laughed exactly once, silently, controlled, just a brief compression of the lips, when I read her the $70,000 loan text. She sent formal letters to Nadine and Carolyn covering 3 items: the Facebook post as potential defamation, the loan demand as legally unenforceable, and all further coercive contact as documented for possible future action. Carolyn's response: a Facebook comment calling me a man who hid behind lawyers. Nadine's response: 9 more texts and a voicemail in which she described the overseas job as performative. I forwarded everything to Henrietta. She did not laugh this time. She made a note. Notes from Henrietta are, I believe, the legal equivalent of a loaded weapon in slow motion. I also, on Friday, changed the apartment lock. This was not dramatic. It was a 12-minute procedure and cost 40 euros. I consider it the most efficient thing I did all week. Step 2. Vojtech makes calls. Here is what I learned about Vojtech that week. For 30 years, he ran municipal events, city festivals, civic ceremonies, holiday programming. He knows 6 city officials, 3 venue managers, 2 catering coordinators, and Karel, the conductor of the Municipal Festive Brass Ensemble, who has owed Vojtech a favor since an incident at the 2019 Summer Culture Festival involving a tent, a technical rider, and a situation Vojtech described only as the incident with the acoustics. Carol was responsible. Vojtech resolved it without filing a formal complaint. Carol had been waiting 6 years for that call. Friday afternoon, I was in my apartment when I heard Vojtech through the wall. Not words, tone. The specific cadence of a man giving instructions that are being received without question. He knocked at 4 p.m. He sat down at my kitchen table with a small notebook. Le Papillon, he said. 2 p.m. Saturday. I have spoken to Carol. The ensemble has a booking Saturday morning, which ends at 1 p.m. at the Civic Square 3 blocks away. I stared at him. Carl says they can be at Le Papillon by 2:20, possibly 2:15 if the morning runs short. Vojtech, I said. What will they play? He looked at me as if this was a strange question. What do you want them to play? I thought about it. I thought about the HR meeting, the Facebook post, the 33 missed calls, the $4,340. The word performative. Do they know anything triumphant? I said. Something that feels like a conclusion. Vojtech wrote something in the notebook. Carol has opinions about conclusions. I trust Carol, I said, which was something I could not have imagined saying 6 days ago. There is one condition, Vojtech said. I must attend. I have not seen Carol conduct since 2019. I have feelings about this. Of course, I said. He nodded. Closed the notebook. Also, I am bringing Mrs. Horakova from the 3rd floor. She has wanted an outing. Who is Mrs. Horakova? She is 79. She will enjoy this. I had no grounds to argue with any of this. I did not try. Step 3. Saturday, 1:50 p.m. I arrived at Le Papillon 10 minutes early. The cafe is large, with floor-to-ceiling windows facing the street. It is the kind of place that is chosen specifically to be seen in, which I had noted and found darkly appropriate. Nadine had arranged 11 people around 2 pushed-together tables. Her mother Carolyn, her sister, 3 mutual friends, 2 people from the book club, an aunt I recognized, an uncle I did not, and Bettina, who caught my eye when I walked in and gave me a look I can only describe as I tried. I sat down. I ordered a coffee. I was the only person at the table who had ordered anything, Nadine began. She had notes, actual written notes, on a folded piece of paper. She spoke about our relationship, my sudden decision, the impact on our family, the overseas job as running away, the loan as something she needed and that I was withholding. She spoke for approximately 7 minutes. Several people at the table nodded. Carolyn had the expression of someone who had been waiting for this moment. I did not interrupt. I sipped my coffee. I waited. When Nadine finished, she looked at me. I just want to understand why, she said. I want you to explain yourself. I set the coffee down. I folded my hands on the table. Nadine, I said, I'm going to say one thing, and then I'm done. Everyone leaned in slightly. I didn't leave our family, I said. I left a financial arrangement I didn't agree to in a relationship where the terms kept changing without my input. With a woman who, when I made a legitimate career decision, threatened to quit her job and demanded I sign a $70,000 loan. Those are the facts. I have documentation. What you're doing here, in front of these people, is what professionals call a pressure tactic. It won't work. I'm leaving Monday. The answer to the loan is no. I wish you genuinely well. Silence. Total, complete silence. Carolyn opened her mouth, and that is when the brass band arrived. Step 4. Carol, I want to be precise about the timing, because it was, and I say this with full awareness of how insane it sounds, genuinely perfect. Not perfect because I planned it to the second. Perfect because Vojtech had planned it to the second. And Vojtek's understanding of event timing was built across 30 years of professional practice. And Carol had apparently run the morning set 11 minutes early because of a brief rain delay that compressed the schedule, which meant the ensemble finished at 12:49 instead of 1 p.m. Which meant they had been standing on the corner outside Le Papillon since 2:08. The moment Carolyn opened her mouth, the door of Le Papillon opened. Vojtek came in first. He was wearing a blazer. He had not been wearing a blazer earlier. He had apparently gone home and changed. Behind him, Mrs. Horakova, 79, in a very nice hat, holding Wojtek's arm and looking around the cafe with the expression of someone who had been promised entertainment and had arrived expecting delivery. And behind Mrs. Horakova, Carol. And behind Carol, 14 men in formal dark uniforms, each carrying an instrument, forming a single-file column that wound from the door through the cafe's entrance corridor and partially back out onto the street. Carol was a short man with an extremely upright posture and the expression of someone who took his craft very seriously and who had been told by a man he respected that this occasion required something triumphant. He stopped in the center of the cafe. He looked at me. I gave him a very small nod because I did not know what else to do. Carol turned to his ensemble. He raised his baton. What they played was, I later learned, a condensed arrangement of a march chorale had composed himself for the 2017 city anniversary celebration, which he described to me afterward as something between a victory parade and a formal goodbye. It was loud. It was coordinated. Every person in Le Papillon, customers, staff, the 11 people at Nadine's carefully arranged intervention table, turned and stared. It lasted 4 minutes and 30 seconds. During those 4 minutes and 30 seconds, I drank the rest of my coffee. I placed the cup back in the saucer. I looked at Nadine, who was staring at the brass ensemble, with an expression I had never seen on her face and do not have words for. I looked at Carolyn, who had not closed her mouth since opening it, and had now not closed it for 4 minutes. I looked at the book club members, one of whom was filming on her phone. I looked at Vojtek, who was standing with his arms crossed, and the expression of a man watching something come together correctly after a long wait. I looked at Mrs. Horakova, who was nodding along with the melody and appeared to be thoroughly delighted. When the music ended, Carol lowered his baton. The cafe was completely silent. I stood up, I buttoned my jacket, I looked at Nadine one last time. Safe travels, I said, because I could not think of anything more precisely correct. I walked out. Vojtek followed. Mrs. Horakova followed, arm in arm with Vojtek, at a pace that suggested she had no intention of hurrying, and every intention of enjoying the remainder of her afternoon. Behind us, I heard one of the book club members say, very quietly, "What just happened?" I did not turn around. Step 5. The aftermath I did not witness but received reports of. My friend Tobias was seated at a table across the cafe. I had not told him to be there. He had seen the Facebook post, recognized the cafe, and shown up out of what he described as basic human curiosity and loyalty, in that order. He texted me a reconstruction. After I left, approximately 90 seconds of complete silence. Then Carolyn said something. Then Nadine said something back to Carolyn. Then one of the book club members, the one who had been filming, said she thought I had made a fair point, actually, which triggered what Tobias described as a separate and distinct argument that had nothing to do with you. The mutual friends, he reported, quietly paid for their drinks and left in stages, the way people leave a party that has become a different party than the one they agreed to attend. Karel, he said, stayed for a coffee. He and Vojtek sat at the bar and talked for 40 minutes while Mrs. Horakova ate a pastry and watched the room with the satisfaction of someone at a theater. The ensemble stood outside for a while. A small crowd gathered. One of them, apparently, began playing something unrelated, and 2 others joined in. and for a brief period, the corner outside Le Papillon became an impromptu street performance. Tobias sent a photo. Tobias rated the entire afternoon 9 out of 10 and said he was taking away 1 point because nobody offered him food. I flew out Monday morning, 3 months overseas now. The work is real and hard in the way good work is hard, and I come home each day tired in a direction that feels correct. Here is what happened. The loan was never signed. Nadine sent 4 more texts over the following week. Angry, then conciliatory, then angry again, then a photograph of the kids at a park with no message. I forwarded it to Henrietta. She said it was not legally relevant. Carolyn has not contacted me since Saturday. The Facebook post was deleted 11 days after it went up. No apology, just gone. Bettina texted to let me know. I thanked her. She said she'd always thought I was steady, and she stood by that. Carol sent an email 3 weeks later, forwarded through Vojtech. He said Saturday was one of the more unusual deployment contexts for the piece, but that the timing was appropriate and Le Papillon's acoustics were adequate. He invited me to a proper performance when I returned. I wrote back that I would come. Mrs. Horikova has attended 2 more ensemble performances since then. She and Carell apparently get along well. Vojtech says she is good for the scene. Vojtech accepted a part-time consulting role with the city's events department. He started last week. His first act was reorganizing the permit filing system, which had not been updated since 2011. He texted me a photo of the new binder, color-coded tabs. I have never been more proud of anyone. What did I learn? I learned that the Vojtechs of the world, quiet people with notebooks full of 30-year-old favors, are not background characters. They are load-bearing infrastructure. They have been paying attention when you weren't. I learned that the kind of conversation designed to make you small in front of witnesses has one structural weakness. It requires you to stay still and absorb it. The moment you decline, the whole thing collapses. You don't need to argue. You just need to stand up and button your jacket. And the brass band, I will admit, didn't hurt. Eat it. Yes, Carell and the Municipal Festive Brass Ensemble are a real ensemble and they are available for bookings. No, I will not provide contact details. Vojtech handles that. Edit too. No, I will not be answering questions about the loan demand or the legal letters. Henrietta has a process, and I am not part of it. Edit 3. Vojtech update. He accepted the consulting role. He started last week. His first act was to reorganize the permit filing system, which apparently had not been updated since 2011. He texted me a photo of the new binder. It has color-coded tabs. I have never been more proud of anyone. Edit 4, she texted again. I showed it to Vojtech over a video call. He read it, set the phone down, made a note in his notebook, did not look up. Unimpressed. Good night.